Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Craig, where we talk about all things firearms, firearms policy, politics, culture, media, you name it. We're talking about it right here on Coffee with Craig. So take a moment, like and share the program so that your friends can join in the conversation as it is happening. Also, take a moment, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook if you are not already doing so. That way, you guys will get the alerts as soon as we go live. Also, please take a moment to visit fpcgear.com. That's fpcgear.com. It is the #1 place to go in order to purchase pro-Second Amendment swag, T-shirts, coffee mugs, hoodies, sweatshirts, stickers, you name it. But the good thing is every dollar that you spend there goes right back to the Firearms Policy Coalition and our battle for the Second Amendment. So you can support the Second Amendment and you can look good doing it. That's at fpcgear.com. All right, now, talking about a support for the Second Amendment, one of the things that is really kind of scary, at least at the federal level, is starting to watch some of these, starting to watch some of this legislation starting to move at the federal level. Just the other day, the first anti-gun bill to pass out of any House committee, there are some that we didn't like that need to be fixed. But talk about in terms of specifically expanding gun control. There was one particular measure that passed out of a House committee just the other day that we really need to talk about. Make sure that you guys know and that you guys hear about. Now, this measure specifically, it's HR8, and HR8 in essence would expand background checks, national background checks. It would require a background check on any firearm transferred in these United States, whether it's at a gun show, whether it's sold by an FFL, or whether it's once again sold or transferred at a gun show, or just sold between two private individuals. Here is the chairman of the committee, kind of sharing with folks what he believes. Just kind of, this is Mr. Nadler, kind of explaining a little bit about what he believes this particular bill will accomplish.
Today, the Judiciary Committee considers H.R. 8, the Bipartisan Background Checks Act of 2019. This is long overdue legislation that will help address our national crisis of gun violence. As I noted last week, when the committee held our hearing entitled Preventing Gun Violence, A Call to Action, nearly 40,000 Americans lost their lives because of guns in 2017.
Okay, so number one, I just want you to note, nearly 40,000. So first of all, he's severely dragged that number up because it's somewhere closer to 33 to 34,000. And that was in 2017. And he talked about this being an epidemic and how this background checks were in fact going to solve or address that problem. Now, mind you, forget the fact that 90 to 96% of all crimes that are committed with firearms, they actually are not committed by the person who actually owns the firearm, meaning the gun used was obtained other than through a legal purchase where you would have done the background check. So that's issue number one. The other thing that he doesn't even talk about is the fact that 2/3 of the deaths from firearms are suicides. So once again, this is just the very beginning of what he's talking about. And by the way, this does absolutely nothing. This has nothing to do with suicides. There's absolutely nothing about this bill that would prevent people from committing suicide with a firearm. But I digress. That was the very first thing. And I also wanted you to note that he mentioned the year 2017. That's the number that he uses when he talks about how many firearm deaths there have been in these United States.
This is a distinctly American problem. By comparison, in 2011, the United Kingdom had only 146 deaths due to gun violence. Denmark, 71. Portugal, 142. And Japan, just 30. But last year in the United States, almost 40,000.
Okay, once again, he pulls up that number again, almost 40,000 last year. So in 2017, 40,000. But he uses numbers for Japan and for Denmark and for Great Britain from 2011. Now, why do you think he does that? I'll tell you why. Because he wants to use numbers that are most favorable to his argument. He's going to make sure. And by the way, he doesn't include all of he doesn't include all suicide numbers. He doesn't include all homicide numbers. He just includes, once again, the numbers that he's going to cherry pick. And we already know that he's comparing apples to dump trucks because he's using two separate years. He's also ignoring the fact that, for example, countries like Japan even though they've completely banned firearms, they're number two amongst all industrialized countries when it comes to rate of suicide. Not only are they number two when it comes to rate of suicide, in general, as a whole, they're number 6, way far and above ahead of these United States. But he doesn't want to tell you that because he wants to say it's a uniquely American problem. They also make it a point to, and they only look at what they call industrialized countries without actually really defining what an industrialized country is, because they don't want you to hear about places like Brazil, where last year there were 62,000 murders relating to firearms. I didn't say suicides. I'm not talking about law enforcement shooting an individual who's committing a crime. No, I'm not talking about that, which, by the way, is included in that number that he cited in the United States. I'm talking about people who have committed murder, over 60,000 in Brazil. Once again, they're cherry-picking numbers because that's the only way in which their argument makes any sense at all. But wait, there's more.
According to one study, 22% of gun owners in the United States acquired their most recent firearm without a background.
Yes, without a background check. So 22%, basically 1 in 5 Americans who purchased a firearm did so without a background check, right? So what that doesn't tell you is 80% of the people who purchased firearms legally did so with a background check. What he also didn't tell you was how many criminals purchased their firearms without a background check. In other words, how many people who are going to go out and commit a crime purchase their firearm without a background check. I'm gonna pretty much guess somewhere near 10 out of 10. Somewhere near 100%. 90% maybe? Because if you're a criminal who's prohibited from owning a firearm, chances are you're not going to go tell on yourself by going to purchase a gun. He also didn't tell you how many of those 22% of firearms that were purchased without a background check were actually involved in a crime. Notice that, once again, that's something that's not included anywhere in this debate, anywhere in this discussion, is how many people who purchase their firearms without a background check are actually involved in crimes. How many of them wind up being crime guns? The reason why he doesn't tell you is because, well, he doesn't know.
Check. I am particularly heartened by the mobilization of so many students and young people from diverse backgrounds and from every part of our nation who are now at the forefront of this effort. They join mothers and fathers in calling us to do more to create a future in which children do not fear being shot in school or on the streets.
Okay, so let's just, once again, this all goes back to the whole, Parkland, Newtown. The interesting thing about this particular bill, and once again, he's telling you this is the inspiration of this bill, right? The interesting thing about this is that, background check wouldn't have stopped Parkland. A background check wouldn't have stopped the borderline shooting in in Thousand Oaks. A background check wouldn't have stopped the shooting in Santa Barbara and in Isla Vista. It wouldn't have stopped. The San Bernardino shooting. It didn't stop Orlando. It didn't stop Newtown. The thing is that in all of these quote unquote mass shootings that they keep saying that they want to stop, none of them, absolutely, positively, none of them would have been affected by HR8, because really they know that HR8 is not going to fix the problem. It's just a step in the process toward eventually taking away our firearms. But then again, you don't have to listen to me just say it. Listen to the ranking member of the committee share his perspective on it.
I'm sad the bill before us represents another missed opportunity to prevent this violence in our communities. It's disturbing that in a clamor to do something to combat mass violence, you and your colleagues managed to craft a bill that does exactly nothing.
Exactly. It's a bill that does exactly nothing. And you know, let's go ahead and let's, give him a chance to share why he believes this bill would do absolutely nothing.
Evidence tells us that HR8 will solve nothing. The National Institute of Justice, the research and evaluation arm of the Justice Department that informs criminal justice decision-making, concluded in 2013 that universal background checks are ineffective without a gun registry. So what did my Democrat friends do with the NIJ's conclusion? They ignored it. In fact, they wrote a bill that explicitly prohibits creating a registry. Let me be clear, Mr. Chairman. In no way am I suggesting there should be a registry. That's a profound intrusion on the rights of millions of Americans, but this shows our Democrat friends are perpetrating a fraud on the activists who support them. They're peddling false hope to both activists and victims of violence.
Now, see, now that's an important distinction. You need you to understand this. So their goal is eventually they want a registry, because that's the sort of legislation, once again, that they try to set up. They want to set up background check where it's like, okay, this person bought this gun, or they're doing a background check to be able to purchase this firearm. And what it does is it creates a form of a registry, because it doesn't say, well, this person owns this gun. What it says is this person did a background check to purchase this gun. It makes it a back-end registry. Now, why is a registry important? If they have a registry, when the time comes that they want to ban a type of firearm, or if they want to ban firearms altogether, guess how they find out who's got them? Bingo. They go to the registry. Now, they're saying, well, they realize, so that's why they realize that people don't want a registry. They realize the registry is bad. So they go out of their way to say, no, we don't want a registry. But that becomes the next step. We all know that that is going to be the next step. Why? Because they cannot help themselves. They cannot help once they get universal background checks. The next step is going to be a registry. Now, mind you, they already have a study that says that it doesn't work. But that's not the only study that's been out there that will tell them that it doesn't work. And by the way, that's not the only flaw with the bill. The fact that the bill doesn't work is not the only flaw with the bill, as Mr. Collins points out.
Not only is the bill ineffective according to the Obama DOJ, its policy is so irresponsible it will turn law-abiding citizens into criminals with a stroke of a pen. Consider the domestic violence victim who has a restraining order against her abuser but still lives in fear of him. She'd like a firearm to protect herself but can't afford one because, in their wisdom, the chairman and colleagues have prohibited the Attorney General from capping the cost of the NICS check. If you happen to live here in Washington, D.C., that cost is $125. For many people, that means choosing between putting food on the table or protecting themselves from dangerous people. So this victim's friend offers to loan her a firearm. As a law-abiding citizen under HR8, this victim would have to go to her nearest federal firearms licensee for a background check. Otherwise, she'll be a criminal. Because she lives in North Dakota, the nearest FFL is 4 hours away, while her abuser lives just down
the street. Folks, I can't even begin to tell you. So one of the things he also talked about was, literally here in California, they have found that there is absolutely no link between background checks and a decrease in gun violence. They discovered that in a recent study that was done right here in California. And the reason why they know that, I'll tell you why they know it. I know the reason why it was is because there was at one point there were actually laws in place that kept criminals. You committed a crime, you went to jail, and you spent a good amount of time in jail. Well, now we're letting those criminals out. We're changing the laws so that you aren't going to spend as much time in jail. And as a result, we're seeing an increase in crime and violent crime here in the state of California. Who'd have thunk it? Anyway, so HR8 has passed out of committee. And now it's going to the full floor. It's been amended. Most of the hearing was actually about debating the amendments to the particular measure. Things like not requiring those who have concealed carry permits, exempting those who have concealed carry permits from having to go through the background check and things like that. That was probably the overwhelming percentage of the overall debate. If you want to watch the hearing, we'll put a link to that video in the description here. It's actually a pretty good. Once again, if you got 11 hours, yeah, it's a pretty long hearing. But there's a lot of debate and discussion about concealed carry permits and concealed carry permit holders, which raises the question for me. I'm wondering what sort of discussions that are going to come up along those lines in the future. But in any case, this is a measure that, quite frankly, needs to be stopped. It'd be nice if we could see this thing voted down on the floor of the House. But that's only going to happen if you folks are involved and engaged. So here's what you need to do. Now that this is moving to the floor of the House, we need you to follow the link in the description of this video and go and make sure that your voice is heard. Tell them that universal background checks are not going to solve the problem. Ultimately, what you need to be looking at, members, Congress people, what you need to be looking at is how about addressing the issue of criminals with guns? How about actually prosecuting criminals who use guns in the commission of a crime? Here in the state of California, we had a member who decided that they were going to they were going to remove the mandatory minimum for the use of a firearm in a crime. That's right. Here in California, Mr. Bradford decided he was going to introduce a bill that was going to do that. Stuff like that has got to stop. You can't say we're going to go after law-abiding citizens while at the same time letting criminals get away scot-free with utilizing firearms. In fact, a lot of the firearms crimes that you and I would get prosecuted for, criminals get them dismissed. They don't even prosecute criminals for those crimes, which is odd. In fact, the Obama administration had the worst record of any president before him when it came to the prosecution of gun crimes. One of the absolute worst of any president. But that's how it is. So anyway, like I said, follow the link in the description of this video. It's firearmspolicy.org/actions. And then there'll be the link for the HR8. Tell your representatives and tell all the representatives to vote no on this very bad measure. And all right, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing this program and telling your friends about the Firearms Policy Coalition. We are the home in the fight for civil rights. Got to use them or you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.